What's going on, everybody? Jolt here from TheTokenMinorities, and I'm here with PPL Division 1 Week 6 of Season 5 against UnderTheRadar and his Maryland Torterrapins. I'm really excited for this game. This is one of the games that I was most looking forward to whenever I joined the league. This one and the one the previous week, and then the one against Monotui later in the season. Those are the big three that I was really looking forward to. We managed to pick up a big win against Shoddy and his Bayern Munich last week, so that was pretty cool. This week, trying to keep the streak going and see if we can pick up that second win in a row. As you can see right now in front of you, the standings for the league, and look how close this is. If you look in the wins column, there's one team with 4 wins. There's 1, 2, I'm just going to count them up in my head, I guess, so I'm not annoying you. It looks like 7 teams with 3 wins right now out of a 12-team league. So well over half the league has a 3-2 record, including myself and including my opponent this week in the Maryland Torterrapins. So it's going to be an important game for sure. But let's go ahead and I guess take a look at the matchups real quick. But first and foremost, want to give a nice shout out again to my front office for the help on my building this week. Tons of mocks, a lot of helpful advice from those guys. So Carson, Bronson, Magic. Those were the 3 biggest ones this week. The Flying Bird also helped me quite a bit, as well as several others in there, just pitching in ideas from time to time. So thanks a bunch to you guys. Also, big thanks to everyone who has been helping me with genning my Pokemon so far this season. I failed to give shout outs for that, so I do apologize for that. But the first couple weeks, UnderTheRadar, my opponent this week, actually was the one to gen my team for me. I've also had its Regulator help out with that. I've had Verd help out with that, and I've had Bronson help out with that as well. So big shout outs to all of you guys. Thank you so much for the help on that. So now, also check out my opponent. His links are in the description below, just like all the other PPL guys. But alright, now let's take a look at the matchup. So my opponent has Kieran Black, Mew, Zapdos, Fortress, Darmanitan, Greninja, Torrent, Suicune, and Comfey. So first of all, he has the God Comfey, so that's definitely a threat, but probably a bigger threat, honestly, than the 2 other massive threats on his team. Really 3, being the Kieran Black, Mew, and Greninja, all of which can hold Z Crystals. The Mew can even hold support Z Crystals. So yeah, very big threats to a balanced build, and Kieran Black being probably unarguably the best wall breaker in this league because of Tapu Lele being banned. So that's obviously a threat. Mew is a threat because it can do so many things. It can give a Tom Pass, it can set hazards, it can be a hazard remover, it can be an offensive set with support, with setup moves. It can just do so much stuff, and it's really tough to prepare for all Mew sets, and there's honestly no surefire way to do so, but I do think that I have a team built that should be able to deal with it pretty well. At least make it so that Mew isn't the biggest threat on his team, which is about as good as it can possibly get, I think, in terms of playing against a Mew with a more balanced build. So the other big threat, like I mentioned, was the Greninja. I do have some pretty good responses to Greninja, and things like my Registeel, most notably Registeel, also Sliggoo, both of which are very good responses to it. But even so, Greninja can pretty easily wear down both of them, especially the Registeel. It could even U-turn on the Registeel into something like a Darmanitan. That's a problem because I don't really have switches to Darmanitan outside of my Mega Slowbro and kind of Keldeo if I'm bulky. So yeah, Greninja's a big problem, especially if it has a momentum move on it. But if it does have a momentum move, then it probably lacks the coverage to hit my entire team. So there's definitely ways to play around Greninja. I really do think it does have the 4 move slot syndrome this matchup, which definitely is nice. That does mean that he's probably going to run water coverage. I do kind of anticipate that this could be a Z move this week, just because I think he wants to be Life Orb on Kieran Black if he is not the Electrium Z for the Fusion Bolt to hit the Mega Slowbro a little bit harder. The Z move on Mew is also a possibility. I don't really expect it, but it is possible. I just think Z Greninja is the best option against me, just because he really isn't able to run proper coverage for everything. But really, all those options are available for him, as you can run Z Crystals on any of those mons in literally any matchup and be just fine. So, yeah, that's why I don't like Z Crystals too much. But, yeah, those 3 are a pretty big threat. Comfey is actually also a pretty hard thing for my team to deal with, because I do have a few things to switch into it pretty well, namely the Registeel, Rapidash, Drapion, but all 3 of those are also weak to ground attack, so we can easily run an offensive set with Draining Kiss, Calm Minds, and Hidden Power Ground with some sort of other recovery option, and be okay in that regard. So Comfey is kind of annoying for me too, but I do think I can deal with it as long as I keep my responses to it very healthy. So that is the game plan for that. Essentially, just don't let Kieran Black / Mew / Greninja Darm, break me down too much to the point where Comfy can beat me late game. Hopefully I can accomplish that, and as long as I play like I know I'm capable of, I think I should be able to make sure that happens. But let's talk about some of my threats to his team a little bit too. So some of the huge threats to his team. Thunderous Eye is an enormous threat to him because he doesn't have an electric resist. That's something that Thunderous really can take advantage of here, especially with the Choice Scarf, as I do see a lot of potential to be able to just Volt Switch around his team with relative ease, as he does have 2 water types on his team. He's most likely bringing one of them. It's an 8-mon draft. Only 2 mons can sit on the bench, and I highly doubt it's going to be both of those water types, so I should be able to at least get some momentum on those with the Thunderous. I can also get momentum potentially on Fortress if he's fearing Taunt. And even so, I can just weaken down the Fortress because Fortress is his only normal resist as well, making Diggers be also a really big threat against him. So the offensive core, really good against him. I do think Clefable also has a solid matchup, as he doesn't have anything that just purely stops Clefable, especially if I happen to carry both Moonblast and Flamethrower. It hits his entire team super hard. The only things really able to stop that reliably being maybe a bulky Darmanitan, which is a possibility. Also, maybe a bulky Taunt Mew would be able to deal pretty well with Clefable. So he's got some ways to deal with it. He's got ways to offensively check it, like a Banded Darm or just a very physically offensive Kieran Black, but Clefable is certainly a big threat to his team as well. Those are definitely the 3 biggest threats. I think Keldeo matches up pretty well too if I can get his team weakened a bit, as Keldeo is a good check to Greninja, especially if I'm healthy enough to take an extra sensory. Also can 1v1 Suicune if I happen to have Taunt, which I do. I'll show that here in a little bit whenever I show the team builder, but he does have the Mew and Zapdos, which if specially defensive, can deal with Keldeo pretty well, so I will need to weaken those down in a variety of ways. So let's go ahead and hop on over to the team builder so I can show you what I decided to bring here for this matchup. And we are starting this off with the Keldeo. This is my dedicated, it's got a couple really key roles here. One is to be Taunt, to be a taunter, as Mew is a huge threat, but if it is taunted, then it's not able to do half of the scary things that it could do otherwise, most notably Baton Pass, which I think because of the nature of this matchup, I think Baton Pass Mew is a strong possibility. I don't think it's a guarantee by any means, but it is something that I'm going to respect until I know for a fact it is not Baton Pass. So I do actually have double Taunt on this team, which I'll show the second Taunter and Drapion here shortly, but this does outspeed base 100s plus speed nature, so it does outpace, say, Timid or Jolly Mew, as well as he had another base 100. I'm not thinking of it off the top of my head. I think Comfy is base 100, the Kieran Black is base 95, Zapdos is the other base 100, Darm is base 95. It outpaces all those things. So this thing outpaces his entire team bar Greninja, and I have the Payapa Berry to ensure Greninja doesn't hit me super effectively. He's not bringing Grass, not hitting Power Grass this week. It really doesn't make sense in the matchup. He needs other coverage moves way more, so having Payapa Berry makes a lot of sense here. It also makes my Taunt a lot safer against the Mew in a desperate situation where I can't afford to give him an opportunity to try to Baton Pass or something. So Taunt, really good. Taunt plus Calm Mind allows me, plus Secret Sword allows me to 1v1 Suicune as well, which could come clutch. Suicune can be a threat in under the right conditions. I don't think this team's going to allow it to become a threat, but it's possible. This does allow me to deal with that. It also allows me to prevent hazards from Fortress, as well as do a lot of damage, obviously, with Scald, but just that dual stab is really good against him overall, and I think this set should be able to put in a lot of work. Could even become a win con depending on what he decides to sack throughout the battle. So next up is the Drapion, also a Taunter, also pretty fast. This one's not outpacing the base 95s, obviously, because I'm also base 95. I'm not even going to try to speed tie those. I'm more interested in outpacing Suicune, which I believe is what this set is doing, as this will just ensure that even as speedy Calm Mind Suicune isn't able to set up in my face, I'll be able to taunt it guaranteed, prevent it from getting out of hand, and if he is more of a defensive Suicune, or even, well, obviously Suicune, but if he's more of a defensive Zapdos, or more of a defensive Mew, there's a good chance this will actually outspeed both of those and be able to fire off a free Toxic or Taunt on either of them, which could definitely come in clutch, as Poison Pokemon do have perfect accuracy on the Toxic, so don't have to worry about that, thankfully. I did opt for that over Toxic Spikes just because I want to have a way to get residual damage on the Zapdos, considering Zapdos could potentially be a nuisance for things like my Clefable, potentially things like my Thunders, potentially things like my Diggersby that I'll show here in a little bit, or even the Keldeo. So it's really nice to have Toxic as an option on this. and knockoff for obvious reasons, just to knock off those items, and for super effective coverage versus Mew, and Poison Jab most notably for the Comfey, as that thing is a big threat. If Comfey is brought, this thing is going to be kept very healthy throughout the battle. I will not let this thing get weakened at all, because I will lose to Comfey otherwise. Comfey is that big of a threat to my team. Don't sleep on Comfey, guys. It is a threat. But next up is the Thundurus. It is a Choice Scarf variant. He doesn't have an Electric Resist, like I said before, so this outpaces his fastest potential Scarfer outside of Greninja. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to outpace Scarf Greninja, but max special attack. This is all the coverage I really need. Focus Blast to hit the Kieran Black, Dark Pulse to hit the Mew. Everything else is hit hard by Thunderbolt and Volt Switch. So nothing too flashy there, but it's really effective against this team in terms of maintaining momentum. And it's also worth noting that I am outside of range of Greninja's Water Shuriken. Life Orb Water Shuriken, I believe he needs more than 3 hits to be able to take me out from half, or I think he might need 5 hits to take me out from half health. It's something like that. He needs a lot of hits to be able to take me out from half health, but if I am at 75% or higher, just counting Stealth Rock damage, then I am outside of range of Water Shuriken, and that means his only way of outpacing this cannot actually deal with me until I'm under 50%. So that's worth noting there. Clefable, I think this is actually just the biggest monster in this matchup. Not even a setup move, it's even just a Stealth Rocker, but it is Life Orb with Moonblast and Toxic. That combination beats the entire team. The only thing that can deal with that is Fortress, but Fortress is more likely to be physically invested to help him switch into Diggersby. Plus, I don't think the Fortress is going to be able to do much to me at all, because I am a Sassy Nature, dropping my speed and dropping my IVs in speed, making Gyro Ball do less than 25% to me unless he's offensively invested. So even if he is offensively invested, it will do under half, and I will be able to 1v1 it. Also, if he is not a Gyro Ball variant, he will outspeed me, meaning if he is a Volt Switch variant, he will Volt Switch before me, and he will be forced to let something take a lot of damage from a Life Orb, Moonblast, or maybe take a Toxic. So that works out pretty well. It also ensures that I will be able to get up Stealth Rocks on the turn that he Volt Switches potentially, as a potential added benefit there. Overall, super solid against this team. It can't be OHKO'd by anything unless it's a Z move. I believe even Choice Banded Ironhead. I think Choice Banded Ironhead can kill me, but I don't think that Life Orb Ironhead can kill me from Kieran Black, but I'll obviously calc that mid-battle just to make sure. But just overall, this was designed to take hits from both Greninja and Kieran Black as well as possible. Not that I really have counters to those things, but this just prevents those Pokemon from coming in and guaranteed OHKOing me in one hit. So, that is the Clefable, and then we have the Mega Slowbro, pretty much only here to switch into Darm. There's really no other reason to bring this thing, but I kind of have to, because Darm is a pretty big threat to me, and if he brings it in on the Clefable, I think he's forced to click Flare Blitz, so it just makes sense to have the Mega Slowbro there to take that hit. And the combination of Signal Beam, Psyshock can actually win the game potentially, especially if I'm able to get up a couple Calm Minds, as he really doesn't have anything to deal with that combination of coverage moves. He could bring in Kieran Black and start spamming Fusion Bolts, but I can't be OHKO'd by it unless he's a Z move, and I don't think he... Actually, no, Z move doesn't even OHKO this set, so that's pretty convenient. But this set also deals with the Draco Meteor Kieran Black. If he's more of a specially offensive Life Orb variant, this can take a maxed out Life Orb Draco, so that's the reasoning behind the special defense investment here, also making this able to survive a hit from Greninja if push comes to shove and fire off a Signal Beam. So this is just an overall utility Pokemon, able to switch into things, potentially could become a win con if under the right conditions, and it also is a secondary response to Calm Mind Suicune and Calm Mind Comfey, as I will be able to 1v1 both of those due to having Psyshock and Calm Mind. So that is the Mega Slowbro. Finally, the heat of the week, and that is the God Diggersby set. So I'm really hoping this works. I really hope this works. But it is a Agility, Weakness Policy Diggersby with Facade, Fire Punch, and Quick Attack. This sets up on the Suicune and the Zapdos, two most notable setup fodder on his team. It also can set up on the Mew. If he's a Will-O-Wisp variant, then I'll just power up my Facade. That'd be pretty cool. I can fire off an Agility followed by a couple Facades, and it should be able to 2-hit KO Mew. And if he happens to have a specially offensive or just an offensive coverage move to hit me super effectively, that will trigger the Weakness Policy, as Mew is not able to OHKO me unless he has significant investment in a boosting item or just a really strong attack like Blizzard or something to kill me. in one hitter. Obviously, a Z move could probably kill me, but yeah. So there's several things that this can set up on. It's also nice to deter potential Fusion Bolt, as it is my only immunity of Fusion Bolt from Kieran Black, which might come in handy depending on the scenario. And I also do think he's kind of forced to click Fusion Bolt against Mega Slowbro in most situations, so this definitely could come in clutch there. But after an agility, I am able to outpace a Greninja, which is nice because that will allow me to then outpace his Water Shuriken with my Quick Attack, and if I happen to have my Weakness Policy triggered at that point, then that is a +2 Quick Attack doing like 80% to a standard Greninja, and if he happens to be a defense dropping nature, then ow. So definitely a solid set against him, and I hope it does put in some work. So that is the team. I think I covered pretty much everything on this one. About to hop into the battle. It will again be post-com. I think I'm going to stick with post-com for a while, just because I do want to win the league, and you know, I wasn't playing my best when I was playing live. Especially in weeks 3 and 4 against Jack and Paul. I was not playing my best, and I'll be the first one to admit it. I made silly mistakes looking back at it in hindsight. I'm like, why did I make that play? I didn't need to make that play. That was really dumb. Just not the best performances on my end. So we are going to try to patch that up here by playing, by doing post-coms here for at least the next few weeks. I might continue it for the rest of the season depending on how close things get. But yeah, just letting you know on that. But we're going to go ahead and hop on over to the battle. I'm going to go play the battle right now actually, and then I'll bring you the post-com. But I'll be right back with that. Alright, and here we are with the replay of the battle here against UnderTheRadar Kelly. And it was a really good match for sure. Now let's take a look at the team preview, as he decided to bring Fortress, Comfey, Kieran Black, Darmanitan, Zapdos, and Greninja, while I of course brought the Thundurus, Mega Slowbro, Drapion, Diggersby, Keldeo, and the Clefable. So right away, I already know I'm leading Thundurus. I've already talked about this when I was talking about the team builder. Scarf Thundurus has a great matchup against pretty much his entire team, bar Kieran Black. If he does lead Kieran Black, that puts me in a bad position immediately, but I really do anticipate either a Scarf Darmanitan lead or a Fortress lead, either trying to get up hazards or trying to get up some early momentum on me in the game. So Thundurus is definitely my best lead here. He did unfortunately bring the Comfey, so that means that Drapion is pressured a lot to stay healthy, but he actually didn't bring the Mew, which I thought was pretty interesting on his end, as Mew obviously can do essentially anything. It probably could have filled the role of any of these Pokemon that he actually brought here, but he opted not to bring it. Good on him. I do think he brought 6 of the better Pokemon against me. I was really hoping he'd bring the Suicune, as that's something that my Diggersby really would enjoy setting up on, but just looking at what he brought, it might be kind of difficult for Diggersby to be successful, especially because there is the Comfey there that will be able to out-prioritize me, despite the fact that I might have +2 in my speed from the agility. So just a few tidbits there, a team preview. Like I said, leading Thundurus, expecting him to either lead with his Darm or his Fortress, and we're going to go ahead and jump on into this and see if we can avoid getting pummeled by Kieran Black, like I kind of am afraid of here. So as you will see here, Kelly will be issuing the challenge, and he will actually end up leading off with his Fortress, which works out really well for me because the Thundurus does threaten Taunt on turn 1, as well as if he does decide to stay in, is able to weaken it into range of Diggersby's Fire Punch, regardless of if he is Aqua Berries. So that works out really well for me, as now I'm going to go ahead and go for the Volt Switch, as he will reveal to be physically defensive, probably designed to be a kind of switch into Diggersby, but not really, as he's actually going to go for his own Volt Switch here, fearing the Taunt. So that's a good play on his end, as he does catch me as I go into my Keldeo, just trying to maintain the offensive pressure if he did decide to get up a hazard there on turn 1, maybe being a Mental Herb variant or something like that, as he's going to Volt Switch into his Comfey, but this is a free switch into my Drapion. I have no reason not to at all, just because Comfey can't do anything to me unless it has some sort of boost. Draining Kiss is a very weak move. It's probably his best offensive option to hit me unless he is hitting Power Ground, and he's actually going to fire off a Leech Seed, revealing this is probably going to be some sort of a Clefable breaker. I could definitely see him expecting an unaware Clef here, considering he does have the Mew in the back, so that's a good prep on his part there for sure. But now I'm going to actually make an aggressive play and double back into my Diggersby, expecting him to try to go into his Fortress here to get the hazards as well as recovery from the Leech Seed. So going into Diggersby here, expecting Fortress, and that's exactly what he does. So now it's a matter of somewhat of a 50-50. I could try to set up right here, expecting him to scout for the Fire Punch and go into something like a Zapdos, or I can just go straight for the Fire Punch, but I really don't think it's worth going for any sort of super aggressive play here back-to-back right after making this double. I'm just going to go for the safe Fire Punch. I have no reason not to. It damages his whole team well, and he does actually let his Fortress go down here. So we are off to a nice advantage, but here is where things get a little bit interesting, as here I really do think his best play is to U-turn, because if I do go into my Mega Slowbro here on a potential Flare Blitz, Blitz, then I'd be able to potentially set up a Calm Mind and do a lot of damage if I'm a Focus Blast variant. But expecting him to go for that U-turn, maybe expecting me to be a Choice Lock Diggersby. I've only run Choice Lock Diggersbys and Life Orbs all season. I did not reveal Life Orb damage from the Fire Punch. I really thought he would U-turn there, thinking I was locked into Fire Punch, but he actually stayed in and went for the Flare Blitz, which I don't really agree with, but we'll get over that for now, as I'm going to go into my Thunderous just to damage this thing a little bit, maybe to scare him out and get some momentum on something, as I do just go for that Volt Switch and outspeed him. He stays in and goes for another Flare Blitz, revealing that he's almost definitely a Choice Scarf variant of his own. Otherwise, there's no reason to really stay in there and risk your Darmanitan. So Slowbro is able to chew that up with ease, as I'm going to be able to Mega Evolve and just go for a Slack Off here, just to make sure I'm at full health, just to make sure I can stay out of range of a Gigavolt Havoc from the Kyurem Black later on. So I am going to go ahead and Mega Evolve and go for that nice and juicy Slack Off as it goes into Zapdos, revealing Pressure. So that Fortress probably was not Rapid Spin. This is almost certainly a Defog Zapdos, and that's something to keep in mind here as we move forward in the game. As, like I said, going to go for the Slack Off, and he has a couple options here. He could go for a nice Toxic. That's probably the most likely play here, just in case I am an Underwear Clefable. That would certainly help out there, and considering I just sacked my Electric Immunity in Diggersby, I really do think Toxic is the most likely play here, but he actually decides to go for the Thunderbolt. And as you can see, it does a ton of damage and is a critical hit. So, ow. That Zapdos, I think, is offensive. It looked to me to be approximately 252 Timid, max special attack. Zapdos, probably with minimal bulk investment if it is more of an offensive Zapdos. It would make sense to be that set because that is actually able to 2-hit KO plus 1 Mega Slowbro, so that does make sense on his end. And that's the assumption that I'm going to operate under here for the rest of the match, as I'm going to be able to go for the Soft Boil here. Unfortunately, due to the critical hit, what this means is that I'm actually still in range of Life Orb Iron Head from Adamant Kyurem Black, which is really annoying, as I could have made a different play here potentially if that wasn't the case, but I'm going to be able to, I'm going to be forced really, to go into my Mega Slowbro here, as it is the most expendable member of the team, just given what he brought, as it was really here to make sure I could set up alongside the Suicune, maybe set up alongside a Calm Mind Comfey, but I do have other ways to deal with that, especially with the Drapion being at full health and the Fortress gone. So I'm going to be, blown back a little bit by this Kyurem Black, because he did reveal to be Hone Claws, which is really good prep on his part. That's just the set that body bags the core like Clef, Mega Slowbro. So I'm expecting his coverage to be, especially after seeing the leftovers here, I'm expecting his set to be Roost, Hone Claws, Iron Head, and Fusion Bolt. That does hit my entire team. It makes a lot of sense for that to be the case. I don't think he's going to have Ice coverage, and that will impact some of my plays here later in the game. But it does, of course, kind of make me regret losing Diggersby early on, as now Diggersby would have easily been able to take any one hit from him, but it's hard to really know that at that point in the game, and I really thought he was going to U-turn there. It just didn't make much sense for me for him to go for a Flare Blitz, but I am going to lose my Mega Slowbro here to the Kyurem Black, so once again, Mega Bro does nothing. Not really feeling it too much, not going to lie there, but here I'm going to go into my Keldeo just to force him out. If I'm Specs, I guarantee take him out from this range, and he does have to respect that, so he's going to go into his Comfey. I just went for the safe Secret Sword. I did kind of expect him to make a play like that, or maybe even go into Zapdos, but Comfey was obviously the more likely play, but the fact that he brought his hard in like that and it took that little damage tells me that I think he's especially defensive Comfey, just to help him deal with both my Thundurus and my Keldeo. So that does make a lot of sense, as I'm going to go straight into my Clefable, just trying to take this as an opportunity to get at my Stealth Rocks, thinking that he's probably just going to go for Leech Seed again, potentially expecting the Drapion. So it did feel like an overall safe play to me. I know these things get taunt, but I'm just going to hope for now that he might not have it, as if I can get the Rocks up, that would be really good for the Zapdos and the Kyurem, and even the Darmanitan that's chilling at low health right now, as he actually does have the taunt, so that sucks for sure, as I'm not able to get at my Stealth Rocks, and he's able to get back the leftovers recovery here. But the fact of the matter is, this Clefable still can beat this Comfey 1v1 as long as he is not Calm Mind, so I am not fearing anything yet. I want him to show his hand before I'm going to actually fear this thing with my Clefable. So I'm going to just stay in and go for the Life Orb boosted Moonblast, and it's going to do a lot of damage. As you can see here, it's going to do, it looks like about 40%, and get the special attack drop, which is nice, but of course the more I spam it, the more likely it is for me to get a special attack drop, so I really don't think that's hacks, but even so, it does just mean that this thing definitely cannot 1v1 me here. And he's just going to switch on out into his Owl, which is the Darmanitan, and that will go down here to the Moonblast. So his best, not his best, but one of his offensive breakers, one of his physical breakers is now gone, which is definitely convenient for my Clefable late game. So Clef is already developing into a win con here, and I really do think it should be able to pull the game for me in the end, as long as I play my cards right, as now he's going to go into his Kyurem. Once again, due to the crit earlier, I'm actually forced to switch out here because I'm in range of Ironhead, just in case. I don't want to be, flinched and taken out, or even just taken out here right away. So I'm going to go into my Keldeo here, just expecting the Ironhead. It was a very risky play on my end. I could have gone into something else on my team, but Keldeo had the best chance of being able to take out the Kieran Black on the following turn if I were able to get the prediction right, and unfortunately it didn't really work out for me. Might have been maybe not the best play on my end, but overall I really didn't think Keldeo was going to win the game, especially with Clefable probably being able to deal with Greninja, as well as Drapion being able to take any hit from Greninja. And just overall Clef being the win con, and knowing that I needed Drapion to help deal with the Comfey, and knowing that Thundurus could have also been a win con in this game. I think Keldeo was just the most expendable there. As I'm going to go into my Drapion just to knock off the leftovers on this thing, as it's still a huge, huge threat to me. It's really hard for my team to take this thing on. It just doesn't match up well against Kieran Black at all. But here, I actually chew the Fusion Bolt, which is really nice. But I'm going to actually pull a double here into my Thundurus, which again, I just feel like it was something I had to do because I had so few ways to offensively deal with this thing. I didn't have anything on my roster that could switch into this thing and kill it on the following turn. Clef was kind of close, but it wasn't able to kill it. And even if he goes for Ironhead, I'm 2-hit KO'd, so like Kieran Black's a monster. But I'm just going to go for the Focus Blast and do a ton of damage to this. And he's just going to go for the Fusion Bolt because Thunder is relatively bulky naturally. I'm able to chew this pretty well. It's only taking 101 HP from that. Now I'm going to pull the switch out into my Drapion, expecting him to go into his Comfey, as he almost certainly knows that I'm Choice Scarf at this point. And that's exactly what he actually does, as he goes into the Comfey, giving me an opportunity to, one, get a little bit of health back from leftovers, or Black Sludge in this case, and two, just get a little bit of offensive momentum against him, as this is the freest Poison Jab of my life here, and getting that chip damage on the most likely Zapdos switch in is certainly important if I want to try to win the game late game with the Thundurus. So here he is going to actually go into his Zapdos, as I'm going to fire off a Poison Jab and finally be able to reveal what his defensive investment or his bulk investment really is on this set. And as you can see, the P-Jab does a lot. So this is uninvested Drapion. That was a lot of damage. I think this is like nearly max offensive Zapdos, probably 252, roughly 252 EVs in speed and a little bit in HP. So yeah, that did a lot of damage, but that's really important information to have also in terms of trying to win with Thundurus later on. So if I'm able to weaken down the Comfey, get rid of the Comfey ideally, and just weaken down the Kieran Black, then Thundurus can win. And if I am able to, this is a big play, I'll get to this in a second, if I'm able to get rid of the Kieran Black, then Clefable can win as well. But as you can see, I switched him at Clefable on this Thunderbolt, knowing that it's my only real switch in, and also knowing that unless he gets 2 max rolls, I cannot be KO'd, 2-hit KO'd by Thunderbolt from this thing. But he actually gets the Paralysis, which is big because I get a full para trying to go for the Soft Boiled on this turn, where Clefable was looking like the win con here at the end of the game. Clefable plus Thundurus had a very, very good chance to win, and basically that Paralysis is going to be incredibly detrimental here late game, and I'll talk more about it once we get into the post-game talk, but it has a huge impact here on the end game, as I'm going to be forced to go into my Drapion here. And now I have about a little bit over a 50% chance to be able to take him out here with the Poison Jab. Very close to 50% roll, and unfortunately I low rolled that one. It actually turned out to be nearly a minimum roll, so that's pretty cool. So back to back kind of crappy hacks there. But that one's a little bit less so hacks. It was just a mid roll that I missed, but even so, it's frustrating at this point, obviously. But here I'm just going to go for the Toxic. I know I can 1v1 this thing with my Drapion as long as I play my cards right and taunt at the right time and get the Toxic damage to wear him down. From 50%, I can definitely take him on, as he just goes for the Fusion Bolt, and you're going to see that it does a lot to me, but I do survive because Drapion's really fat and can take hits from his entire team really well, surprisingly. But here I'm going to actually go for the Taunt, as his best play is to Roost, expecting me to just try to go for a last-ditch effort Poison Jab before I die, but I do have the Taunt revealing it now, and also outspeeding this thing is certainly nice, as he does try to go for the Roost, so he went for his best play, and that worked out well for me there. And I'm going to be able to get him into range of Poison Jab plus the third round of Toxic damage, which was the goal here, just trying to get rid of this thing. I still have a very slim chance of being able to win with Clefable. Very, very slim, especially now that this thing is dead. But that is a high order, as I do need to be able, I have to be able to recover up on the Zapdos with the Clefable in order to 1v1 it, Greninja, and Comfey, which is very, very hard, especially with paralysis chances flying around. But with this thing gone and having that Clefable at near full health, then I would be in a good position. Not fantastic position, but I would be at least in a position where it is a 50% chance to win the game, essentially, if Clefable was at full health and I still have Thundurus alive like I do. As Clefable is able to 1v1 this Comfey, considering it actually does not have Calm Mind. The full set was Synthesis, Leech Seed, Taunt, and Moonblast. Or not Moonblast, Tyrannikiss. Thank God it doesn't have Moonblast. I guess I wouldn't get priority on Moonblast, so it wouldn't be as good, but whatever. It probably does get Moonblast. Anyways, this is actually able to 1v1 the Comfey just because I have the Life Orb. He's going to run himself out of Syntheses before he is able to take me out. So I'll be able to continuously pressure this thing with Moonblast. The Zapdos can't 2-hit KO me from full health. As you saw earlier, it required 2 max rolls to be able to take me out from like 80% health, so I can definitely 1v1 the Zapdos. The Greninja, my Clefable is EV'd specifically to be able to 1v1 Greninjas. The only way he'd be able to beat me 1v1 is if he is Life Orb or Specs with Hydro Pump, and that would require hitting several Hydro Pumps in a row, which I don't know, maybe my opponent could pull that off, but I'm not going to hang my hat on that. I don't think that's a very likely outcome. So Clefable was certainly able to 1v1 Comfey, was certainly able to 1v1 Zapdos, was certainly able to 1v1 Greninja, and if that sequence between Drapion and Kyurem Black went down exactly as it just did on the previous turns, then I think I would have won the game here with Clefable plus Thundurus. But the fact of the matter is, things could have definitely changed here late game, as he may or may not have actually allowed the Kyurem Black to go down in that exchange between the Drapion and the Kyurem Black, where I went for the Toxic followed by the Taunt, trying to slowly wear him down with Toxic damage. I don't know for sure if my opponent would have actually made that choice if the Clefable was at higher health, because intuitively I would think that his thought process was that Clefable is weakened into range of Hydro Pump from Greninja. It's also weakened into range, potentially into range of Thunderbolt from Zapdos. I don't really necessarily need Kyurem Black here, so I can potentially sack it here. That's a potential thought process, but there's also the other hand of this, where he might just think, I don't really need Kyurem Black anymore. I should be able to 1v1 Clefable with the rest of my team, when it turns out that due to my set having Toxic and Moonblast with a Life Orb, I definitely would have 1v1 his entire team with ease. So it's tough. That's just how it worked out here. As you can see in the closing moments of the game, I haven't really been commentating here at the end because the game was over right after the full para. But I'm just going to try to squeak out another differential point with the Thundurus, but the Comfey is pretty fat. It also has priority healing, so it's going to be tough to take that on. And even if I am able to get rid of this, he still has the Zapdos, which is out of range of a Thunderbolt unless I get a critical hit, and potentially Water Shuriken Greninja, but with how he was playing the Greninja throughout the game, I'm pretty convinced that it was not Water Shuriken, which does make sense considering the Greninja does need a lot of coverage moves to be able to hit my entire team. So, as you can tell, pretty obviously at this point, we're going to lose this game, and the score is actually going to be 2-0, as eventually I'm going to be able to take out this Comfey, and then try to do damage to the Zapdos, miss out on the critical hit, and the Zapdos will be able to take out my Thundurus there on the following turn. But yeah, we're going to lose this game. I think it really was going to come down to the wire, though. Like really, really close, maybe down to the last one or two plays, maybe a couple 50-50s would have been involved at the end of the game. It would have been a photo finish in a really, really, really good game if we didn't have the full para on the Clefable, followed by the near min roll with the Drapion. So just that sucked. That sucked a lot. I do also kind of think the early critical hit on Clefable was important. It ended up being less important because of the para, because at that point it really didn't matter. But in the end game, every HP point on Clef was important. Clef kind of got hacked out this week, which is too bad because this was the matchup that I really thought Clef would be able to shine. So, yeah, I mean, that's all there really is to say on this. We pick up an L. We move down to 3-3, again with a 0 differential. So, not really able to get off that midline here. We're going to be, again, in the middle of the standings, which, that's okay. Better than being at the bottom, I guess. But, it's just too bad, I guess. It's too bad that that's what happens in Pokemon sometimes. But, with that said, my opponent played very, very well. There was only one play that I really had any strong disagreement with, and that was with the Darmanitan play early on against the Diggersby. Really thought U-turn was the optimal play there, but if he knew my moveset, knowing that Diggersby was actually going to go for agility on that turn. I don't think I ever actually said that whenever it happened. I wanted to go for an agility on that turn. I clicked agility on the turn. He went for Flare Blitz. If I had gone for that agility with the Fortress gone, he had no normal resist left on his roster. The only thing that would have been able to potentially come in and immediately revenge me would have been, well, no, nothing. Nothing would have been able to come in and immediately revenge me just thinking about his coverage moves. He might have had the Greninja, but he wouldn't have hard switched that into Diggersby. He might have had the Zapdos. He probably would have gone hard into Zapdos. That would have been my guess. But then again, that does come down to what his last coverage move was. And just thinking about it, he had Thunderbolt, U-Turn, Roost, probably Defog because he was pressure, so that means the Zapdos didn't have anything for Diggersby, leaving the only real way for him to check Diggersby being the Greninja. That being a Water Shuriken Greninja for an agility variant, which I don't think he was Water Shuriken by how he is playing it. But yeah, so maybe I don't know, it's tricky because now knowing what his movesets are, I think Diggersby was a much bigger win condition than I gave it credit for, as he really didn't seem to bring much at all to hit it super effectively outside of the Greninja. That also means that my weakness policy might have been a bit less effective here in this matchup, but it is what it is. I think the pivotal moments in the game were that 50-50, somewhat of a 50-50, predicting the U-turn where he went for Flare Blitz with Darm taking out my Diggersby, and the other pivotal moment was the para followed by a full para on the Clefable. Those two moments in the game were really, really big and honestly sway the match in the direction that it went to. But with all of that said, my opponent did play very well. Very good game to Kelly. Make sure to go check out his channel if you haven't already. Have a high quality draft content creator, one of my personal favorites. Like I said, one of the guys that I joined the league because I really wanted to play against him, and it was a really good game for sure. It's a shame RNG had to jump in and steal some of the show, but was still a good game. Not going to take that away from him, and we're going to move on from the hacks. So next week we have a match against Jordan and the Southampton Sneasels. I hope I got that right. Not 100% sure on that team name. I think it's the Southampton Sneasels. He is not doing too hot this season. I don't know how he's done this week quite yet, but I know that he is winless actually going into this week. So we definitely don't want to be his first win. I can say that much. We'll bring the A game. We'll try to get ourselves back up to a 4-3 record and maybe still make that push for the title. We're not out of it yet. We're only 2 games max out of first place. I don't think the first place team has played yet this week either, so I'm not sure on that. But if he does happen to lose to whoever he plays, then we'll still only be 1 game out of first place. So we're right there. We're still right there. We can't keep losing though. I think if we get 4 losses, that's going to be about all she wrote for the championship hopes. But if we can continue to win from here on out, we can still do it. And I do believe in my draft. I think it's a good draft. I don't like Mega Slowbro, but we're going to make it work as best we can. But we'll just see what we can do. So thanks for watching, guys. We'll get that win next time, I promise. All right, we're going to get this. So thanks for watching, guys. We will see you all next week. Peace.